Ladies and gentlemen, the principle of lesser evils is, we believe, not in line with liberalist purposes, which is to make big changes and to make progressivity as fast as it could be, right? Because if you do adopt the principle of lesser evils, you will most likely base your whole decisions not on the sustainability and future prospect of these certain decisions, rather than you will base it on the surface level morality instead. So, we will define liberalism as a politic view in which it demands equality and it supports the ideal world of free will for all citizens in that specific country, or the citizens, or for example, the humans that live in that certain country, right? Now, their interest in its own is they want big changes to be made into to be made into their certain country, so that it could progress as fast as it can. Now, we will define lesser evils as the principle in which if you're faced by two immoral options, right? For example, the immediate choice to, for example, kill 10 dogs or 1 human, you will see it based on the morality's point of perspective, ladies and gentlemen, which means that you will see it based on how many lives, for example, you will be killing. So, at their side, what you will be choosing is to save those 10 dogs, for example, or 10 babies, which is very idealistic in our opinion, because it doesn't guarantee also the sustainability of those 10 dogs or 10 babies, right? Our ideal world and mechanism is a world in which we make decisions based on the sustainability and future prospect of certain decisions, because we believe that that's the best way and the more realistic way, right? And we also believe that it's more in line with liberalist purposes, which is to create faster and more productive change. Now, I'm going to jump into my first argument, which is about the morality, right? Say you're faced in a split decision to save 2 babies or 1 self-sustained human adult. Most likely, under opposition, you will adopt lesser evils and you're going to pick the first option, which is to save 2 babies. And you will, for example, kill that adult. We say that it's better to look at the sustainability point and future prospect point. Why? Because even if you choose the less immoral point, it's still immoral to begin with, right? It's still murder. It's still murder at that point. You're still murdering 1 specific adult, right? You will still be burdened by that certain burden of killing the adult, right? But if you choose the sustainability point, right, you will have a broader view upon the world and the decisions you make, right? You will see that there are a lot of factors that will factor into a certain decisions you make. For example, this adult is already self-sustaining. He already experiences life and he already has a self-sustaining job. For example, even a 9-to-5 jobs in a certain restaurants, right? So if you save this adult as liberals, you will not be burdened in self-sustaining that human adult afterwards. So in this context, we mean by if you do save this human adult, they will be able to self-sustain anyway, right? So you do not have to have that certain burden, which will happen under opposition side, because if we save the babies, for example, right, they will not be able to sustain them. They will not be able to sustain themselves. And in this context, you have to take the responsibility and the certain burden to take care of these certain babies, right? Because if the baby dies, you will still create more immorality at the end of the day. So at the end, and if you save adult, they can also do more productive things that could actually progress your country or progress your specific community, right? So I believe that morality in our side is better, and even if they say it's immoral, it's still not exclusive, right? Because immorality still also happens at their side. Second point is about sustainability and interest, right? The interest of liberals, of course, is to make positive changes towards their community, towards their country, for example, right? Under opposition, we believe that this will be hindered because the decisions you make will be contingent upon your morality perspective, right? For example, the way you punish corruptors. Corruptors are persons that have done very immoral things to the country. They have taken so much resources out of the country, for example, right? And under opposition, they will not be able to apply that sentence, for example, because it will be replaced with the lesser immoral option. No, thank you. For example, because they will see that there is a lesser immoral option. For example, jail time, which we believe that they are not going to be deterred proportionately under opposition, right? Under government, we see the sustainability, because we see it like that. Considering this person has violated the law and is regarded useless to our country, we will of course see a better mechanism of deterrence, which means that we will possibly apply that sentence, because it will create a trickle-down deterrence effect also, and it is way more reliable than just wasting your money on sustaining 30 years of a person's life. So we believe that in our side, the morality point is there, and the sustainability and the self-interest of these liberals to live, for example, to progress their nation is also present at our side. Therefore, we are proud to propose.
Ladies and gentlemen, the whole argument of opening government is that they brought a very broad and a very abstract argumentation about choosing lesser evils without having much contextuality to what's actually the problem of liberals from the very first beginning, that they have to choose one of two lesser evils. Therefore, I will not rebut any of their argument. I will bring more quite clear cases in which this is actually urgent, ladies and gentlemen. So first, we have to characterize the motion of this debate. Where do this case of two lesser evil happen from the very first beginning, ladies and gentlemen? These two cases where liberals are facing two evils candidate are most often happen in conservative country like Indonesia or even Malaysia. It's not happen in US where it's always about liberal versus conservative, right? So in US it is clear that they have to choose the liberal one because it is in line with their idea. But if this liberal happen to live in a conservative country, for example like Malaysia, Brunei or Thailand, of course they have to fit in, they have to do survival, ladies and gentlemen. So why? Because the condition of conservative country is unprosperous for liberals, because the conservative country like Indonesia have tendency of supremacy of the majority. For example, take the Muslim identity in Indonesia, or for example, take the oppression toward minority, where the LGBT community is Indonesia is still hindered, which is outline or not in line with the idea of LGBT of liberal society, ladies and gentlemen. So therefore, in this case where we cannot voice our opinion or our campaign properly, we do believe that we have to adapt the principle of surviving. It means that at the same time we have to still preserve and spread our value, because it is important to us. We can do this through campaign ready or any means necessary, but at the same time we should also participate in government and general election, because it could make the possibility for us to be easier in valuing our ideas, because by participating in the government, there will be possibility that government or the elected candidate will hear our opinion, because we are the one also we have part that makes them elected and became a president or governor or whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen. Take the case of Jokowi. from the 2014, there has always been two kind of opposition party, like they have Jokowi and Prabowo. We know that these two candidates are both seems likely to be conservative, but at the same time, we can realize that Jokowi is actually having a more progressive approach. You can see based on what his works on Jakarta. You can see how he employs more women in his cabinet. You can see how he support the Papuan, the minority, and build more infrastructure there. It means that this one candidate is having a tendency to become more liberals despite his conservative appearance. Ladies and gentlemen, so this will not happen if the other candidate take example for Prabowo Subianto. If Prabowo Subianto came for a very conservative society, he came from the military background, which accepted in line with traditional value of Indonesia, and everything that he says in the campaign is about having to make the Indonesian prosper without tackling any issues of how to take care of the minority and how to take care of discrimination issues. Even though he also bring one major religion to a person in his candidatal presidency, unlike with Jokowi, which bring more colorful and more diverse background, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see what's the impact of Jokowi become the president. You know that there are a lot of things that actually happen that are in line with liberal movement due to Jokowi. Notice that how RKUHP is postponed, ladies and gentlemen. This is also actually in line because there are many people who oppose it. This is actually in line because there are additional voices that he hears from the background. For example, PSI is the liberal party in Indonesia. They keep pushing Jokowi to postpone and to help the government to postpone the idea. The government side of us might bring the fact that it is the mass oppression or the mass campaign of the society that made it. But we do believe that they do it from the very first beginning because they believe that Jokowi is actually liberals, and therefore if they do turn down to the road, Jokowi will hear them, ladies and gentlemen. The other example is how like one of the PSI anggota DPRD criticized the policy of Anies in controlling the funding plan of DKI Jakarta. Notice that he criticized this funding and it created backlash in the conservative society. But looks what Jokowi and the government do to this. They instead of criticizing him back, they want to revise and they want to rewatch the plan by asking Sri Mulyani to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, we do believe that Jokowi seems likely betraying us by choosing Prabowo to become his Minister of Defense or choosing Maruf Amin to be his Vice President. But we also have to realize that at the same time, Jokowi also have to maintain his position in the presidential in his presidency chair, ladies and gentlemen. Because if he suddenly wants to do full liberal policy, full liberal approach, it will create disarray in society because the society of Indonesia is still mostly conservative. Therefore, if Jokowi do that, he can be taken down from the throne and he can be replaced by Ma'ruf Amin, which even worse. We also have to see the contribution of Jokowi. How Jokowi managed to raise the number of women ministers in the government. How Jokowi choose the Danim Bakarim, like a very liberal person to be his minister. How he choose youth staff, youth that tackles the issue of disability, the issue of education to be his advisor, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the worst case is if you choose sane, neither of the candidate will feel sense of relationship with you or the attachment. So if such thing happen, like if such thing like proposed liberal friendly policy happen by the legislation body or this liberal environment is suppressed in society, this president that are elected will have no sense of responsibility towards you to protect you, because from the first beginning you didn't vote for them, you didn't have any contribution to make her elected as the president or as the prime minister, right? But it is different when you choose him because you contribute even though it's low, you come to at least 1% to make him become president, and still he still give you more consideration toward that. And at the same time, even though we didn't get to choose anyway at the end, we know it's still in line with our fight, because we want to spread the progressivity. We want to showing to any other liberal friend that participating in election to conserve our country. And the demography of our country is mostly youth, which are often exposed to liberals. So therefore, by participating to the government, they will see that we can also fight through the government. Thank you. Very, very proud to oppose.
Panels, first to clarify, our main goal as opening government in this debate is that we want to create change. We want to turn conservative people being progressive. We want that to happen in our side as well. This is why we are going to rebut few points of opening opposition. They say that, okay, they want to imply this motion into conservative country, which they say that majority wins and so on and so forth. We say if you are going to continue to choose to also continue trying to survive in majority, you will never create a change. That will never fulfill your main goal as a liberal. We say if you're going to be liberals, your main goal is supposed to be, you are supposed to be brave. You are supposed to come up and say that, okay, I want to create a change. I'm a liberal, meaning that I don't want to be manipulated by majority, meaning I have to create a better a decision which actually is very, very brave and is and that it suits what I'm standing for. We say that bravery is actually a very big factor in creating change, and that is what we want on our side. We want these liberals to be brave and to come up with the decision to actually create change. They also stated something about what people in status quo in conservative country are not able to actually accept people with LGBT and so on and so forth. We say that this is actually not really true. Notice that there are so many public figures out in conservative countries actually coming out saying that they are LGBT and so on and so forth. This proves to you that actually this is not a problem anymore on their side. So we think this should be discredited. Second, they say that Jokowi employ women, Jokowi brings so much color inside of the parliament and so on and so forth. We say that Jokowi makes this decision simply because he wants to sustain, he wants to act, he does not want to play safe. He wants to sustain his place as well, because he knows if he doesn't make this decision, if he doesn't make this kind of decision, it's actually if he doesn't make this kind of decision, it's going to be very, very harmful for him.
Question.
Yes.
Okay. In your side, are you going to vote in election or not?
Of course, we are still going to vote in election. We say that, as we said last time, bravery is a very big step on us. By voting in election as well, in the very first place, that we never said that democracy was never in our side. As liberals, we are also going to sustain democracy as well. We are still going to vote in public votings. We are still going to do that. So we think that point isn't credible. So we have to stop Stanley for today. The first is principle of evil, and second, why liberals' main goal is going to be reached at the end of the day. First, the principle of evil. If opposition side of the house is going to bring something about immorality and how being evil is not good and so on and so far, we say that we are going to tackle down this argument by two main reasonings. First, why with evil we're going to create a change. Second, why is it still justifiable if you're going to be evil in the very first place? Why are we going to most likely to create a change? Let's take an example of trying let's take an example of death sentence and life in prison. We say if you are going to be moral, you are going to put these terrorists. In this scenario, we're talking about terrorists. You're going to put these terrorists in life in prison if you're going to be moral and you're going to continue with the line of morality. We say if you are still going to sustain your country and you're going to protect your society, you're going to choose death sentence. So we think that it is very, very okay to choose evil. Why? Because within this scenario, we think that it also works in other scenarios as well. We think that it's okay creating evil decisions as long as it can make change. We say that liberals in status quo also really wants to create change. They want to have equality. They want to fight for rights and so on and so forth. We say that if it's actually bringing change and it succeeds to sustain that scenario, we say that it is going to be very, very good, right? In the worst scenario, if they're going to create this decision and they fail to sustain something that they're trying to hold on, we say that it is okay as well. At least they have come up and try to be brave and create a decision that is actually still okay. Second, substantive. Why at the end of the day main goal will be reached? We say, as we have completely stated a few times in our last speaker and in my speech, the main goal of being liberals is to want to create change. You want to have equality and so on and so forth. That is actually the main goal. Especially when they say it's actually going to be in conservative countries. We say that this is actually most likely to happen if we are going to impose this motion. We are going to regret the narrative of choosing the lesser evil and so on and so forth, we're not going to rely on morality. We say that if we are going to be brave and be evil, we say that thought process in creating this change, if we are not going to impose this motion, we say thought process will come up and try to create and change. Because if we are going to regret this narrative at the very first place, people are going to think, why is this narrative regrettable? Why aren't we supposed to choose the one that we think is right? So when or the one that you think is lesser evil. So when they are, for example, the decision of evil comes up to their mind, they will come and think what is better for them, what is sustainable for them, and so on and so forth, which we want to happen in conservative countries, as opening opposition has already said. Therefore, at the end of the day, we say it's very urgent to create a change, especially when they say that these scenarios most often happen in conservative countries. We say that in conservative countries, most crucial problems happen. That's why if you're going to come out as liberals, you have to be brave and create and decide on a decision that is actually relying on sustainability and it guarantees your change, not whether or not it's less evil or evil. So therefore, this motion stands.
panels, we say that there is no tangible benefit that government bench that will have if they are regretting about these principles of lesser evil, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we think that their case is not exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, well, I want to give some responses, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the response of liberals is to spread the idea of liberalism, ladies and gentlemen. For example, like fighting for minorities, more secularized, ladies and gentlemen. How it can be accepted by society, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we have to go with strategies because going to vote to campaign could be successful due to variables, ladies and gentlemen. If this campaign happen in the progress country, they are accepted, ladies and gentlemen. Go vote in conservative contest, society will resist. The fact that the number of liberal is relatively small, so there is no any tangible benefit of those candidates to listen to you, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why candidates still care, the reason why nowadays in the current status quo, the people in parliament still care to you is because you help them to persuade the people to vote them. You do campaign, during the you persuade people during the campaign, ladies and gentlemen. That you think that they are more because you think that this candidate is more lesser evil than the greater evil, ladies and gentlemen. That you think that this candidate will take your aspiration, your interest, and manifest it into a policy, ladies and gentlemen. Nowadays, if you want to regret, there is no any. It means that there is no any reason of them to take care of you anymore because you persuade to people to be abstain, ladies, or not to choose them, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what are the liberals are striving right now, ladies and gentlemen. Well, what are the goals of liberal is that they want to more liberation, more rights, secularized, fighting for minorities, ladies and gentlemen. These goals will never be achieved if you don't want to collaborate and do cooperation with certain candidates that you think that it is more or lesser evil, ladies and gentlemen. That at the end of the day will take your aspiration and takes an impression and your interest and manifest it into a policy that actually at the end of the day will be beneficial for you to further your movement ahead in the future, ladies and gentlemen. The government might say that we don't have any the government bench might say that we don't have any parameter on what lesser evil is, ladies and gentlemen. But we say that the lesser evil are them who have track record as someone that is someone or parties that have support with our idea, ladies and gentlemen, as liberal. For example, like we have parties like PSI, which is liberals that want to fight for minorities. They don't agree about the idea of polygamy and so on and so forth. And also we have individuals which is a politician like Surya Paloh, which is a secular person, ladies and gentlemen. This track record can be taken as parameter of them which is lesser evil that can be detected that they are within our favor, ladies and gentlemen, that can further our movement or save us or give us some kind of protection in the current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Because the member of liberals is relatively small, also we have to be pragmatic in politics. We have to be pragmatic. The moment when we ask people to persuade people to choose certain candidate that we think will take care our interest or interest, the candidate will have a moral burden that at the end of the day will help us to reach our goals in return of what we have done to them, ladies and gentlemen, for everything that we have done. Okay, we also say that the moment when this candidate win and proceed to the parliament, it will be, and hold the power, it will be good at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. For example, like they get seat enough in the parliament. There are someone or people that we can rely on in the current status quo, ladies and gentlemen. Why it is important? The moment when there is no one to rely on depending us for everything that will happen ahead. For example, if there are problems if we have a problem with conservative people, like conservative people, for example, like that we see right now, the group that want to change this, for example, like there liberal people like Panji Pragiwaksono that seems as that it is a figure as a liberal one. Their voice is seem to be blunder and irrational. So that this kind of problem can be protected by those people in the parliament, ladies and gentlemen. Also, we say that we have to be a stepping stone and vehicles for their success, ladies and gentlemen. Why it is important? Because the moment when the candidates get set enough, of course, and hold the power, that at the end of the day it will be beneficial, because they see us as someone that give benefit to them and can benefit to them, ladies and gentlemen. But we see because we vote them because as their vision and mission, ladies and gentlemen, or based on their promises, ladies and gentlemen. We say that our liberal society is need to be protected also, ladies and gentlemen. The moment when you as a liberal do not care about do not regret about lesser evil, you have the moment when you as lesser do not have persuade people to acknowledge their voice in the election, because it is because actually it is what the idea of liberals doing, the idea of liberals that they are doing right now, ladies. And that's the idea that even liberals agree with, ladies and gentlemen. The moment when you regret this principle about lesser evil, means that you will never go persuading people, and you tend to ask people to be abstain, ladies and gentlemen. And actually, I don't know what is the reason on why the government bench still going to vote to vote in the election. Well, they're actually they regret about lesser evil, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we don't get the point. The moment when you do not have contribution, meaning that there is no any reason to hear you. Why? Because you don't have a power. Even if you don't go to vote, there is no tangible harm of the candidates that will have at the end of the day. So because your power is relatively small. And also we think that the moment when you support lesser evil, meaning that you prevent greater evil, that will hold the power that's actually within your paper, that will even creating more creating policy that will harm for the liberals, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we oppose this motion.
Mr. Speaker, in our world, we are going to put our trust. We will not gambling with this kind of scenario. We will not put trust with that kind of lesser evil, which potentially turn to greater evil, ladies and gentlemen. In our world, we are going to very stick that we are going to looking for the candidate who is suitable for us, who very liberal, ladies and gentlemen. If we do not like it, at least our interest will be long last, ladies and gentlemen, in political discourse. And I'm going to prove to you why. When the moment we abstain, we are going to achieve it, ladies and gentlemen. In our world, we are going to, as liberals, we are going to abstain, ladies and gentlemen. All assume that now they are already progressive of liberal interest in so far, because such as how basically Jokowi choose Nadiem Makarim, how basically this kind of PSC and so far, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that there is no the nuance of how basically the liberal interest there, ladies and gentlemen. What basically the interest there is such as even such as when you see that even Nadiem Makarim still ambigu, ladies and gentlemen, if they are very support liberal, even such as there are in education system still ambigu, such as banning the progressive of students to learning English, ladies and gentlemen, in education, ladies and gentlemen, and even that kind of the RKUHP, there is no interest of liberal on that, ladies and gentlemen. What is the interest on that? Is the capitalist interest, ladies and gentlemen. That shows to you, and the next, what is the interest on that? How basically maintain the megawatt, the kind of the alliance of Jokowi, ladies and gentlemen. That we never see how liberal they are, ladies and gentlemen. And this kind of politics it should be it can be changeable, ladies and gentlemen. In our world, why it's better, ladies and gentlemen? Because why when we abstain it's better? Because the moment we abstain, yeah, we agree that we are minority, but we still have around in 100%, we still have around 30% amount of this kind of liberals. That very significant numbers as liberal, ladies and gentlemen. When the moment when we abstain, we send the narrative to every people that there is the problem in the kind of the country. They do not cater our voice, ladies and gentlemen. As a liberals, what is the interest of liberals? Like how basically we are going to such as vocalize LGBT and so far, LGBT right, how basically that kind of interest all of the movement which is very progressive will be cater, ladies and gentlemen. And that is our stand. Therefore, we believe that the moment when we such as send the narrative, and yeah, maybe greater evil, the best scenario, the worst scenario, greater evil will be elected. But at least when the moment there is no abstain because that kind of the reasons, international society will feel because that kind of the media will use that kind of the political condition in Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, how basically the moment when you abstain because that kind of conditions, there are many investors who are going to such as see that there is political problem inside of Indonesia, they are going to worry to invest their money on that, ladies and gentlemen, because that kind of political interest is very problematic in Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen. That kind of investor is not only the interest of the greater evil, but it's also interest of the evil, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, with the moment when we show that kind of the notions, means that that kind of evil and that kind of the greater evil will cater our voice, ladies and gentlemen. At least our voice will be cater at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And the moment this is that kind of abstains will be stuck in that kind of the memorial. When the moment there are many candidates who are going to such as contracts when the moment we abstain, they are going to such as create because this is urgency, they are going to create such as politics which is prefer to the end of the kind of liberals, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, at the end, that kind of people are going to such as that kind of the policy will be sustained, ladies and gentlemen, because there is watch from other people, ladies and gentlemen, because the urgency is very percent, ladies and gentlemen. In their side, that kind of policy is still changeable because the interest of this kind of lesser evil and greater evil, we do not see how basically they stand on, ladies and gentlemen. And the second, why the comparative is this: when the moment when you fall, automatically, like what I said before, that kind of politics is changeable. Maybe such as that kind of the lesser evil that you put interest will ally to that kind of the greater evil. For example, when the moment when they fail, automatically the moment when you fail, you have no moral, but you have no power to criticize them, ladies and gentlemen, because you already vote them, ladies and gentlemen. The moment when you vote them means that you put trust on them, ladies and gentlemen. You say the narrative that there is no problem in status quo, ladies and gentlemen. But the moment the problem exists, you have no power to vocalize back, ladies and gentlemen, because your opponent will force you that is your fault. And I think that because you trust them and so far, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, I think that there is no, when the moment in our side, when the moment there is mistaken in that kind of the lesser evil, at least our opponent will such as hand in hand with us, ladies and gentlemen, to such as criticize that kind of the leader, ladies and gentlemen. On your side, there is not that kind of power to criticize exist, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, it is better in our side. And in our side, why your voice will not be, and the second, why your voice will not be heard, because We believe that political staff is very pragmatic. Lesser evil can be such as greater evil, and they will maintaining in power because they will maintaining in power, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because of course the political interest. They will maintaining power in the next election, ladies and gentlemen. Moreover, they still consider the progress, the conservative people in the next election still have the big number, ladies and gentlemen. They still considering that kind of the voters, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, I think that is still gambling, ladies and gentlemen, whether or not that kind of conservative power are going to still arise on that kind of on the future, ladies and gentlemen. In the moment. Let me assume that they're talking about in current status quo they are already progressive, such as there kind of conservative there is such as for prohibit to burqa and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. That show that every individual is very take that kind of the conservative, ladies and gentlemen. But we believe that it is not favor for the liberal, ladies and gentlemen, because what I said before, the liberal interest is not just such as how to make sure that that kind of conservative have lesser power anymore, such as not wearing burqa and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. But we are going to stick that every individual a right have to cater, ladies and gentlemen. And such as that kind of the right to such as have, moreover, that kind of the regulations such as how basically your intimacy be regulated, ladies and gentlemen. It is very very harmful that kind of the progressive, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, in our side, it will be better, ladies and gentlemen, because therefore I propose to.
Opening government focuses on the issue of morality, not relevant. Opening opposition talking about status quo is progressive. We have the option of the leader who have the propensity to support liberalism, so we have to rely on them. Closing government say about we have to be decisive in political position, but not necessarily explain how they can help liberal. As a closing opposition, we would like to focus on the war scenario, even if there is no choice that seems to incline or directly support us, why it is still important for liberal to exist in political constellation. But before that, several responses. So opening government talking about lesser evil in the context of giving punishment, death penalty versus death sentence. Well, this is dilemmatic. We have myriad of reason to defend death penalty, death sentence, but this is not that bad. This is the context of whether as a liberal, if you are faced with the option of two evils, whether as a government badges you support to vote or not to vote, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, on the idea of turning conservative into liberals. Well, firstly, they say that we have to have bravery and decisiveness. Well, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. While we agree with that, but within that, how you can make sure that this bravery and decisiveness can turn into the how you as a liberal can have a legitimate avenue to voice out, i.e. political stage, ladies and gentlemen. CG said about, say that they support the idea of abstain. They said number one, because in status quo there's no progress. Saying that Nadiem Makarim is not representing liberal. Wrong. He's Western educated, supported the concept of free market, free ideas, supporting more female employment, minority employment. They even admit that current government is already against conservatism, like banning burqa, etc. So it shows to you that in their side, they cannot go with the idea of no progress in status quo. Secondly, on the idea of international security, in their side, they can gain international security and decreasing investment. No, if you're not dominant narrative, you're invisible. Like you don't have any power to begin with. Secondly, investment deals. It is contingent upon how healthy your economic condition, purchasing power. It is not contingent upon whether or not your government is filled with liberals or conservatism, ladies and gentlemen. So this is not relevant. Secondly, they say that when you vote, it means that you put your trust. Not. If you can enter parliament or government system as an opposition, so it's not always that you have to succumb to the majority, ladies and gentlemen. So all in all, we already rebutted all the cases from government. So get into my point about the idea of why that in the worst scenario we still have to regret the idea of lesser evils. So what we want as a liberal, number one, we want to be acknowledged as a valid and formidable group. Number two, we want to have influence in the society. And number three, we want to ensure you have power in governance system. To achieve this, you have to involve in the democratic process. You have to make sure you are paramount and pertinent voter base. The leader who will be chosen should take into consideration your ideology, policy, etc., which you are advocating. This is exactly why PSI still participating in legislative election, they showing support to Jokowi and still advocating the minority interest. In government side, they want liberals not to vote, not to involve in a process. They want to oppose the government by no means. Things are, in order to have change, you have to be part of decision-making process, political lobbying. You have to be part of media scrutiny and discourse. By this, you can attract viewership and interest. Therefore, the traction in the general public increases, ladies and gentlemen. Even if we only gain gradual progress in politics, we say number one, politics is about pragmatism. You need to mark your existence first, your power in political constellation in order to make sure that you, at the end of the day, will have the power to push forward the agenda of liberal. That's the gentlemen. Liberal view, the point right now is it's about maintaining and keeping the momentum alive for liberal. Liberal view have to gain positive trend in society. So that's why in status quo that we have to make sure that liberals controlling the discourse in social media, discussing about progressive bills and etc. Ladies and gentlemen. All right, so the context is right now that liberals did not control the dominant social narrative. By not participating in democratic election, your ability to control and shape social narrative will be lost. You will not be interviewed by media, you will not be interviewed mainstream media, you will not be invited to political talks, etc. Like in the political talks in Najwa Shihab, which is so influential in status quo. Because regardless how eager and loud you are as a liberal advocating your view, you don't choose, you don't have influence in society, so you will be only end up being labeled as loud and noisy and disturbing. We have to make sure that our voice matter, our existence is important. Secondly, about the politics, about pragmatism. Well, the idea about this, ladies and gentlemen, that we have to maintain our relevance. We have to follow what is currently the trend in society. So that's why we have to still, in a part of governance, to control or to have a say on the policy of education, policy of healthcare, or the policy on the framework of poverty alleviation. We have to show to the general public how, as a liberal, are advocating for general public interest, using this momentum to gain more power, gain more interest within the context of general public, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we want big change. We expect radical change, but unlikely this has not happened. So that's why that we at this point we cannot expect like legalization of LGBT, forcing men to take paternal leave, or legalization of prostitution. Obviously, we have to gain momentum and power in order to progressing this policy. So that's why we have to still in a part of governance as an opposition, whatever the position you want, as long as we are in government systems. Secondly, on the issue of backlash, we think that we don't want to if we don't involve, we think that number one, we lost our ability to still advocating. We do not provide safe place and environment for those minorities, LGBT, like women, like infant prostitution. In their side, they will still, they cannot operate under the underground because you are powerless and you are so easy to be scrutinized and to be cracked down by this conservative. In our side, at least that we have individuals in government who still protect these individuals, giving healthcare, like a law enforcement provision for this prostitution, and providing protection for LGBT, etc. So that's why in our side, it is much better because we provide avenue for liberals to still have a relevance, to still have a say in governance system. So that's why we back to oppose. Thank you.
In my speech, I will talk about three things. Number one, why we think that the process why then change happen even under our side of the house, and change will not happen even in their side of the house. And secondly is that the comparative, that why in our side of the house, even we are not, we are abstain, we think that our voice, our ideas still can be represented and still can be listened by the greater evil, and lastly, the comparative harms, ladies and gentlemen. Because that is the coming from the previous speeches. All my rebuttal will integrated in my issues. So going to the first, ladies and gentlemen, in just to the opening bench, that why that in our side, why we think lesser evil will never represent your aspiration, even you vote for them, ladies and gentlemen. They opposition simply claim that you will listen because you are a significant part of their base and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. But I think it has been debunked from my first speaker that there will be a political interest, ladies and gentlemen. That even you are significant of their base, but that you need to understand that how politics works. That the pragmatism and self-interest is most likely to happen, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reason why that my first speaker say that even they are lesser evil, that there is more probably there will be greater evil, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because they are pragmatic and political interest. That's the reason why, for example, Jokowi choose Prabowo as a ministry defense, because they would like to popularizing the image and strengthening their power. Why? Because the moment they don't take Prabowo will be the opposition, ladies and gentlemen, will be the opponent of Jokowi, in which we think it will be it seems like it will reducing the reputation of Jokowi, for example, and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. That is shows to you that how politics works. They are pragmatic, and they will because they would like to popularizing the image, and they would like to elect it again in the future. But second reasons that even if that you vote for the lesser evil, and there will be people, a party, or people will represent you in parliament. But let's understand that how policy making in parliament, ladies and gentlemen, based on voting. What does it mean is that even you have representative in the parliament, but you are still minority, ladies and gentlemen. What does it mean? It means that your voice, your aspiration will be, the policy will be not represent your voice, because in terms of policy making, that your representative is losing by the conservative majority in parliament, ladies and gentlemen. But second of all, but last of all is that talking about prioritizing issue, ladies and gentlemen. I think that is how politics, that prioritizing issue. So we think that even you are fought for the lesser evil, but we think that the moment has been selected, for example, they will see that they will prioritize which issue more urgent, for example, and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that there is most likely that this candidate, for example, will see the issue in which perhaps more probably the issue is going to the conservatives, for example, because the conservatives are majority, and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. So we see that is most likely less likely to happen. But what is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen? The moment you choose lesser evil, this can be happen in two scenarios. Number one, you will stay becoming ally, which is no change as no progress, in which we think that it will be harm. Why? Because we talk about liberals, you are not individual, but you are communities. What does it mean? In terms of in election, for example, you will advocate and persuade your members, for example, on how to be abstain. But at the end of the day, the moment your aspirations is not represent and not catered by the leader, we think that you will be critics and criticized by your members, for example, and perhaps the backlash of liberal communities will be happen, ladies and gentlemen. But second scenario is that you will change your goals, not becoming ally again, but you will be opposition, ladies and gentlemen. We think that it will be much harms. Why? Because you will see that you are not commitment one. You are don't hard stand, for example, because at the end of the day you will betray your choice at the very first place, ladies and gentlemen, because you are choose to be opposition. So we think that there will be going to be harms. So in the comparative, why we think that in our side of the house, even we are not vote, that our interest will be listened. Because talk about political lobbying, ladies and gentlemen, that even you are not a part of their base, for example, you are not chosen in the election, but why we think that political lobbying will still can happen, and why it will work, ladies and gentlemen? Under two reasons. Because you are a part of government agenda. For example, you are liberal, and you are corporations, for example, you have a lot of contribution to the countries we will provide job field, for example, in which the agenda of government is on how to support the economics of society by providing more job field, for example, and you are a part of their agenda. So we say that the moment a political lobbying, most likely for you to make this greater evil government will listen to you to change their policies because you are a part of their agenda. And second of all is because you are contribute to the state, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that the moment they will not listen your aspirations, for example, you will threat them that wishing that it will you will not contribute, and again, and it will reduce the productive of the states. But second reason is that talking about international forum, we think that my first speaker explained to you that talking about politics is not only internal politics but a large of spectrum, ladies and gentlemen, international politics. What does it mean? It means that the moment the politics in your country is unstable, for example, and so on and so far, we think that the international like United Nations will be not listened. Perhaps or other countries like Western country will be intervention because they are support the progressive value, for example, and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. But second of all is that talking about international community perhaps will criticize the greater government because they are because talk about liberal is that talking about liberal is most likely going to you have a large spectrum. So we think that the moment you are discriminated, for example, that other liberal in other country will not listen, but they will support you, perhaps. And we think that it is only it's also happen like investor, for example. Even opposition claim that investor will not influence, it will not make them less to invest. Even politics, your politics is unstable. We think that, yeah.
CEO thinks the debate has two burdens to prove, right? First, whether the discussion is productive or not and what it materializes into. And second, which proposal captures the importance of channeling the changes liberal want. Is it outside of the system or inside of the system? So let's just directly engage to the discussion, right? First, CEO has told you that the lesser evil have are progressive in status quo, that they have the intention to change and they have the intention to cater the liberals people in status quo. But even in the very worst scenario, that they don't have the incentive to change and they cannot be able to cater the interests of the liberals, why it is still okay to not regretting the principle of lesser evils. Where opposition can think that it makes people directly succumb to the option of choosing these people who are still evil, and this evil person will no more having the incentive to change in status quo, and they will never have the sustainability of interest that will be that is dreamt by the liberals people, right? But ladies and gentlemen, we say that no, they cannot just get away with that. Scrutiny still exists. At least people still can be exposed to the discussion of what both candidates offer, whether it is good and accommodative enough to various segmentation of our society. Second, Second, check and balances of what important issues should be discussed exist. People scrutinize the current proposal of IS and regulation that only accept normal people. For example, the discussion in social media exists. The problem is that this cannot be achieved if just proposed or discussed or the discussion only created by the liberals or people who care only, because it's not initiated by government body. In status quo, people will not just care like that because the majority voices are still conservative or patriarchy. Change or pressure to change the pressure to change the lesser evil exists, but is not strong because it is not inherited to the internal system, or the discussion is only brought by people not brought by people in power. Ladies and gentlemen, the initiation by the government body shows the urgency of the policy, like child marriage, for example, succeeded by Rahayu in DPR agenda. This is also concerned by liberal feminists because she is inside of the body, ladies and gentlemen. So even if in the very end, worst scenario, the likelihood does not exist or very hard to be dreamed of, at least we are inside of the system, like what Kaabar already told you. Notice we are not majority. Going out of the system will not make our interests can be accommodated enough, ladies and gentlemen. So how this is very important. Inside of the system is very crucial because this is what OO does not explain, right? They just explain just why politicians would cater you because you are contributive. But being using the contribution inside of the system is more important and is more stronger, ladies and gentlemen, because in status quo, actually political lobbying by liberal communities still exists, like Gaya Nusantara and feminist movement. Engaging in the concept of lesser evil in choosing candidate makes you considered as the politician voter base. At least obligation of political feedback is run in status quo, and you are deemed as a contributor to the winning. People claimed as passive, for example, claiming themselves as progressive, even if still standstill, at least they are in power and can watch the government directly since they are inside of the system. The lesser of two evils do not mean you cannot exercise your right anyway in status quo. We don't see the urgency of coming from the government side of the house, right? They do not explain why, as liberals, we have to opt out of the system because they are that discriminated, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you would like to see in status quo, like for example, the groups of LGBT people like ours, Plangi, still exist, and they make the discussion in the end of the day. But what will happen if you are outside of the system? First, the progress you have right now will be regressed. The discussion you created only circling around you and your community and not materialized and lobbied to government body because they'll be resistant to you. That's why the discussion in status quo will not be progressive. Second, the general society also will not consider your issue that you brought because even government body does not care to you in the end of the day. But in the very worst scenario, what will happen if you are outside of the body is because government, which are most likely conservative, will be more oppressive to you and make policy that will not cater your interest because no one inside of the system can counter this policy initiation, ladies and gentlemen. This point is also to rebut our Erwin arguments about whether we'll be listened or not. But we say to you that at least if we cannot be listened that much, at least we can counter the discussion and counter the narrative inside of a discussion, for example. But we cannot see the discussion of politics just directly whether it is win by the majority or the minority, whether it's conservative or liberal, ladies and gentlemen, because the discussion exists. Media coverage also exists. Liberal propose their interests and policy. Politics also not that black and white. We never know that maybe we have other politicians that favor the liberal views, for example, but cannot be that confident in proposing it in discussion because their political background is already conservative to begin with, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that the increasing of child marriage that is succeeded by Rahayu shows to you that the discussion exists, the counter narrative and the counter proposal exists, and at least we can champion this proposal inside of our status quo because the liberal representation of our society exists inside of our system and they can counter the conservative views of the child marriage in the end of the day. But let's engage to the alternatives that is had by the CG, right? They say to us that we can have the international society scrutiny, the investors will not be investing in our country, etc., etc. Kak Akbar already said to you that this is contingent upon economy purchasing power. But I'll add this point by saying first, the question is that why tension will be big and significantly intervene the economic stability. Second, why it is liberal interest to work together with the investors and why it is the investor interest to care to liberal problems. But third, even when you want to see in IR status quo right now, USA as the most liberal are being protectionist and nationalist towards their own country, ladies and gentlemen. But even in status quo also, China is also the partner of Indonesia. They have the over and is an over affecting Indonesia too, ladies and gentlemen. So there is a not very clear discussion upon the alternatives that they have. So even the alternative they want is to rely upon something that does not exist. Comparatively, in our side of the house, liberals will not just simply put their life of individuals who are vulnerable to outsiders' hand, ladies and gentlemen. See, in status quo, even the case of China and Uyghur, for example, it is very hard to help Uyghur because China has the power handling the government and violent towards its community, ladies and gentlemen. If you go out of the system and you do not run the policy and you do not initiate the policy, we believe that because you think that our government is that conservative, then they will end up oppressing us and they will end up creating a policy that will, in the end of the day, discriminating us even more in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So this debate proves to you that engaging inside of the system will at least counter the narrative which are that conservative and will at least encourage other people who also think the liberal views that we have right now, and also it will encourage you more of your leverage in creating the discussion and be more exposed and be more scrutiny by the other society in general, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.